Welcome back to A History of Horror, where we'll be going over 50 movies from the last 100 years. We've spent the last 3 weeks looking at the new monsters from Universal. Now it's time to check out a horror sci-fi from Paramount. 1931's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, directed by, I'm probably butchering his last name, Ruben Mamoulian. It's based on the novella by Robert Louis Stevenson, and interesting enough, it's my favorite movie to come out of the 1930s. The production value is awesome, with the foggy London streets and Victorian architecture. Even the camera work is experimental for its time. There are several POV shots for no particular reason, extreme close-ups during dialogue, and a couple instances with a split screen. There's even an overlap sequence as Dr. Jekyll leaves a patient who had tried to seduce him. The editing of the scene portrays that even though he left the situation, the girl is still very much on his mind. It may not be a big deal now, but in 1931, these techniques were very ambitious. The story begins with Dr. Henry Jekyll theorizing that within each person lies the desire to do both good and evil, and these polarizations constantly battle one another for control of the consciousness.
You have to accept certain things. I don't want to accept them. I want to be clean, not only in my conduct, but in my innermost thoughts and desires.
He develops a serum that he believes will isolate the two sides and create a person that is 100% good. He tests the serum on himself and finds that it has the opposite effect, thus bringing out the deviant Mr. Hyde. The special effects here are fantastic. As Jekyll looks into the mirror, we see him transform into something hideous. What's crazy is that the makeup is on him the whole time during the sequence, becoming visible with different light filters. Frederick March is outstanding, playing a dual role as Jekyll and Hyde. With Jekyll, he's a calm and collected physician, but once he becomes Hyde, he really steals the show. His portrayal of a crazed sociopath is so vivid and evil that it won him the Academy Award for Best Actor, the first time a horror movie had won an Oscar.
Forgive me, my dear. You see, I hurt you because I love you. I want you.
Hyde physically and psychologically abuses a young girl named Ivy, only feeling remorse when he transitions back to Dr. Jekyll. Ivy pleads with Jekyll, begging him to protect her from Hyde, not knowing that they're the same person. He promises that she doesn't have to worry anymore, and later vows to never drink the serum again. However, despite his intentions, he finds that he no longer has control, and Hyde is able to come back on his own. Think of this as a very dark, nutty professor. The movie came out before there were any regulations in Hollywood, which explains how they could get away with all the sex, violence, and drinking on screen. Though not officially stated, Jekyll and Hyde could be seen as an allegory, showing all the horrible things that could happen when you use drugs and alcohol or engage in promiscuity. During the early 20th century, the temperance movement had gained traction, with many Americans being disturbed by the excess vices depicted in the movies. A couple years after its release, Hollywood began enforcing the Hays Code, which dictated what could and could not be shown in mainstream cinema. It started off strict, but became more lenient as the years went on, and we'll talk about that later when we get to the 1960s. Well guys, that's all for today. Next week we'll be looking at another ambitious movie to hit the big screen. One of the most influential movies of all time, King Kong. Thanks for watching.